I read something today, folks, that really made me sit up and think. Pretty much shocked me in a way, really. It came from the pen of Andrew Neil. Now, many of you might not like Andrew Neil, I would guess. I think he's a pretty divisive person. And many of you may not like him maybe because of his political leanings. That said, I don't know what they are. I'm not necessarily a follower of these. But he's one of the few people that when he comes on the TV screens and talks, I tend to listen to him. Only because I feel he talks a lot of common sense. That's not to say he's got lots of common sense. You know, I mean, I've watched him over the last 2 or 3 years and I'm thinking to myself, Andrew, put them glasses on or them contacts back in. What you doing with your bonspiel, son? Colouring that hair like he does. It looks crazy. He's a bit like, what's his name? Who Cliff. He's changing from day to day, week to week, but some of them browns he's putting on there are terrible. You've got enough money, Andrew, to go down to one of them fancy salons in London and pay good money to have a proper colourist colour it. If you don't want a good grey, that's fine, but have it coloured by somebody that knows what they're doing. You don't want to be spending £6 or £7 on these cheap colours and getting your other half to put them on. Crazy. Anyway, I digress, as I often do. So, he's done a piece today in the paper. What's the guy's name? I do know it, but I want to be sure. Owen Jones. Now, many of you'll know him. I've seen him before on the television, especially over the last 3 or 4 months. He's on that there GB News and maybe Talk News every now and again as a pundit. He's regularly on the daytime shows. I think he often does a stint on Jeremy, not Kyle, I keep saying Kyle. The one in the morning, Jeremy, you know what I mean. He did Strictly and all that. He does something on radio too. Can't think of it. Vine. Is it Vine? Whoever it is, you know who it is. Channel 5, 9:15, every day of the week. Monday to Friday, he's on there. This guy's on about once a week lately. Anyways, this guy's done a piece, wrote something the last few days regarding a film he's seen. I believe many journalists have been shown a film, a 45-minute, 50-minute film, that I think's been put together by the Israelis, but it's from video footage taken from cameras being used by the Hamas fighters. I think as they've captured Hamas fighters or killed them, they've took away recordings that the Hamas fighters did on the day that they went into Israel and killed many Israelis and kidnapped also many again. Now, we know when all this happened, we heard that there were atrocities were committed. We heard of things like rapes, sexual assaults, beheadings, throat slitting and all that. We heard about it. And I think some of these things here back some of that up, though they don't back everything up. Now, I did hear at one time, and it was horrendous when we heard it, that there have been lots of beheadings. And I think the Israelis themselves said, no, we found lots of throats cut, even of babies. Some were that severely cut, it was almost like being beheaded, but they weren't quite beheaded. But it was awful. So various things have come out and whatever else. And the conspiracy theorists amongst us, and I think this Owen is one of them, he's trying to say a lot of what the Israelis are peddling from these films maybe didn't quite happen. For all he says he didn't think that Hamas should have gone in there and killed as many Israelis as they did, treated them the way that they did, and kidnapped many of them, he thinks that the people of Gaza are being persecuted on the back of all this, and some of the things that the Israelis are showing aren't quite right, aren't quite on the money. Now, it doesn't matter, well, it obviously does to people that follow people, but to me it doesn't matter who you follow in this. I think, I've got no time for Hamas. I think they were totally wrong going into Israel doing what they did, whatever they did. But that said, I think the Israelis are going too hard at those in Gaza, and the people that aren't Hamas, you know, the normal run-of-the-mill people, Mr, Mrs, boys and girls, are being killed and persecuted on the back of what Hamas have done. But I do understand why Israel are doing it. But the whole shooting match is awful. So I sympathise with the Israelis, and I sympathise with those in Gaza, and I really, really do. But this guy has wrote these things, this Owen Jones, and Andrew Neil has pulled him on some of the things he said, and I'll just read them to you. I'll read what this Owen Jones has said, and then I'll read briefly what Andrew Neil's response has been to them. Owen has said, if there was rape and sexual violence committed, we don't see this on the footage. It doesn't, and Andrew Neil said, well, it doesn't seem to have crossed his mind that even Hamas might be a bit wary of recording rape or sexual assault. Well, I think that you're spot on there, Andrew, and I can't believe that Owen is disappointed to not see rape and sexual assault on the videos. Anyone who thinks that any terror organisation, be they terror or not, are going to record that and let people see that. Right, he also says in another piece that just because we see a young woman's burnt corpse with no underwear in a pool of blood, it doesn't mean that she was raped. Well, no, it doesn't. Why they've had to whip her underwear off, I don't know. But no, it doesn't mean that at all. But what you're seeing there, what's your name again, Owen? You're seeing a woman with a, obviously dead, pool of blood, burnt. So Andrew said to that, I'm sure that's a great comfort to her family, knowing that although she's been killed, she's in a pool of blood and been set alight, that she's not been raped. They'll be happy about that. And then he says, this is another one of Owen's, he details one of the video's worst scenes. A father in his underpants trying to escape Hamas with his 2 young boys. They make it to their security shelter, but before they can close the door, one of the attackers lobs in a grenade. The father is killed. The boys emerge injured and bloodied. One has lost an eye. Hamas doesn't kill them, Jones points out, so he's killed the dad, not fighting back, he's in his underpants, he's carrying 2 children, so it must be young if he's carrying them. None of the children get killed and one loses an eye, but because Hamas doesn't kill the children, they can't be all bad, can they? So Andrew Neil says to that, so is he trying to imply that they're not quite child killers? That Israel would have us to believe they are. If so, it's a contemptible position. And there's lots more like that, but they're 3 of the things that I picked up on. And I thought to myself, what was Owen looking for in that video? Now, he does say the video traumatised him, you know, and he's been left with things on his brain that he'll probably never get rid of. But there's probably propaganda on both sides, like there is with every news channel we've got out there. But when all's said and done, Hamas probably shouldn't have done that fateful day. And now their own people are paying massively for it. And I've got sympathy, as I say, with both sides. But because we don't see rapes and beheadings and all of these things, it doesn't mean to say that they didn't happen. But because we don't see them, to back up the fact that they've happened, I don't want to see footage of people being raped and people being beheaded. It seems to me that Owen does, which is crazy. Well, if he's saying it's traumatised him anyway, watching the 45, 50-minute video, how would he have felt seeing the rapes and the beheadings? Would he have felt worse, but at least he'd have felt better knowing that it really did happen and that the Israelis are telling the truth and they're not making things up? Would that have satisfied him? Very strange. I don't really know this Owen Jones. I've now decided on the back of that piece that I'm not going to get to know him and I'm not going to really like him. Maybe I'm wrong there, I don't know, but no, I don't think he's for me. But yeah, I thought it was a good piece by Andrew Neil, whether you like him or not. As I say, questionable hair colour, yes, but he might have questionable political beliefs, I don't know. But he does talk some sense, or I feel he does usually. Doesn't get everything right, but then again, which of us do? None of us, I would imagine. Anyway, that's it from me on this one.